Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1052, 1052, Sunday, February 23rd, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, just remember to get your votes in for Dumbass of the Week in the comments section of this video. And please try to get your votes in by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that's the time when I do the final tally for the votes. So don't forget your vote for Dumbass of the Week. I've already made up my mind who's going to get my vote. Now let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. Well, obviously, as I'm coming to you now, it's about around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Saturday evening, and it looks like Bernie, the vote's not all in from Nevada, but from where we are standing right now, a lot of the vote is in. They've already called it for Bernie, by the way, and it looks like he just absolutely blew away the field in Nevada. Was not even close. It looks like right now, the numbers are Commie Bernie in first place with 40.9% of the vote. We have Biden with 19% of the vote in second. Buddy Boy in third place with 15.1%. Liawatha, Elizabeth Warren in fourth place with 13.3% of the vote. Klobuchar in fifth with 7.1%. And Steyer at 3.6. So again, that's Bernie 40.9, Biden 19, Buttigieg 15.1, Warren 13.3, Klobuchar 7.1, Steyer 3.6. Well, at this point, when you look at this, Bernie won Iowa, certainly won the popular vote, won the New Hampshire. He is now won in a much, much bigger fashion than even I thought. I mean, I thought he would get 25, 30%. Yesterday, he was polling at 28, but he pulls down 40%, almost 41, which means he's going to get the lion's share of the delegates there. He'll probably tag over somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 delegates right there. That puts him so far ahead of Biden in the delegate count that Biden's out. Even if he places first place in South Carolina, and I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Now he'll stay on the ballot. He's not going to. He'll probably suspend his campaign as far as campaigning and running ads, but his name will still be on the ballot all the way through to the convention. But he's basically out of it. It's over for Biden. That is an incredible gap. 41% first place, and to drop all the way back to 19 points for second place. That's a big gap. And if you look at this and analyze this, you know, there was just a poll that came out yesterday that said that it's a poll asking Democrats, registered voter Democrats, how they identify themselves. And this poll shows that 2/3 of Democrats identify as either liberal or very liberal. Liberal or very liberal. 2/3 of Democratic voters. That's how far to the left this party has gone. Now, what that tells you is if you add up Sanders' 41% with Warren's 13.3, what that gives you is about, 53%, a little over 53%. And so that's coming pretty close to what this poll is saying. Now, if the liberals and very liberals are truly, and the primaries and caucuses are bearing this out, if they are 2/3 of the party, Bernie is going to stroll into the convention. He may not have still the majority of delegates that he needs to close the deal, but he is going to have so many more delegates than the second place guy or the third place guy that it will be nearly impossible to steal it from him. I mean, if he gets to the convention and it's close, it's just a few delegates, 100 delegates or 50, 150 delegates, they can probably still screw him with the super delegates. But if he's got a 20, a couple hundred, 300, 400 delegate point lead, they're not going to be able to do that. The super delegates are not going to be able to come in and just completely blow Bernie out, because it will be obvious that he's clearly the pick for the voters in the Democratic Party. If it's close, they can screw him. But if it's not close, and it looks anything like what we're seeing here, they're not going to be able to screw him without literally destroying that party. It's a tough position that they're in, and they put themselves there. Now, Keep in mind that, of course, Mini Mike Mike the Loonberg, was not on the ballot, and he's not going to be on the ballot in in South Carolina. But he will be on the ballot for all the voting that goes on from Super Tuesday going forward. But let's imagine if he was on the ballot in Nevada or South Carolina, who would he be taking votes from? Well, he would be taking votes from Biden primarily, probably some from Buttigieg, and probably some from Klobuchar. So if this is true, and I believe it is, then Biden gets a free pass in South Carolina because Bloomberg's not on the ballot there either. But Biden will need to win South Carolina first place, and he'll need to win by a healthy margin, or he'll be so far behind in the delegate count that he simply won't be able to catch up. Because on Super Tuesday, Bloomberg will be in the game from that point forward, and all that centrist or neoliberal vote is going to be split between Biden, Buttigieg, Bloomberg, and Klobuchar if she's still around. Now, for a lot of these candidates, even if they don't have the money to continue, they'll probably won't necessarily pull out of the race. They'll keep their name on the ballot and still, consider themselves a candidate. They just won't really have much money for advertising or whatever. But they'll stay in the game. And what that'll do is continue to split the centrist or neoliberal vote, while Bernie continues to run away with the majority of the 2/3 of Democratic voters who identify as liberal or very liberal. Now, here's another wild card that could happen. Hiawatha knows she's not going to win. She's so far behind in delegates now that she can never catch up to Bernie. Bernie's clearly the choice of the far left. So Bernie could probably cut a deal with Elizabeth Warren, say, look, you're not going to win. You're not even going to be in the top 3. And pretty soon you're going to run out of money. The best thing you could do is drop out and then endorse me. And then I'll pick up your supporters. And that means I'll be picking up your 10 to whatever it is. That puts Bernie in that threshold right around 50%. And then he could say, and then I'll give you my VP nomination. Warren Sanders on the top of the ticket with Warren as his VP. So that would give him a woman who's as nutty as he is. Not quite as far to the left he is, but still pretty nutty. And that would give you a Sanders-Warren ticket, which makes sense. And together, they occupy that 2/3 of what Democratic voters identify with as being liberal or very liberal. There you go. Your liberal is Warren, and your very liberal is Bernie. The two of them together, they will consume that 2/3 of Democratic voters who identify as liberal or very liberal. And that puts Bernie into convention, maybe not with enough to close the deal, but with such a massive delegate lead over whoever else is next, which is probably going to be Bloomberg, I would think. But we don't know how much damage he suffered from that debate. So I think the judge may still be out between Bloomberg, Biden, Buttigieg, and Klobuchar. But as long as those 4 stay in the race, they're splitting the vote between them. And Bernie is just cleaning up. Just cleaning up. While the other 4, who are so-called centrists, split the vote between them, they're just going to get slaughtered. I mean, everything is playing into Bernie's hands. Commie Bernie, in my mind, has got this thing. That's the way I look at it. Commie Bernie's got this thing, and the only thing that could stop it is if the Democrats at the convention decide to take such a gigantic risk to, say, okay, we have a brokered convention, we're divided, we need to find a uniter, and we're going to pull from someone who's not in the current field. Hey, let's bring back the rotten Reverend Clinton. And then, of course, Bloomberg gives her the endorsement. Klobuchar, all these other people come out and say, yes, let's just go with Hillary and screw Bernie again. That would divide the Democratic Party beyond belief, probably cause a civil war. Things could get violent, things could get ugly. It's not something that will be resolved, certainly not before November, probably not even in the next, it would take years to resolve that. So it's a disaster coming down the pike, and I think everybody knows it. But if you ask me, I think a victory this big, I wouldn't expect him to win this big. If he goes into South Carolina and beats Biden, it's over. Bernie is going to be your nominee, unless they just literally, at the convention, just take it away from him. And I don't know how they could do that. If it's close, they can do it. But if he shows up to convention and he's got 500 more delegates than the person in second place, I don't see how they could do it without it. It'd be so obvious to everyone. I mean, around the world will be watching this. I just can't imagine. I think Bernie's unstoppable. I really do. I think Bernie's unstoppable. I think Bernie Sanders, Commie Bernie, is your nominee for 2020. And that will cost the Democrats 40 plus states at the presidential level and probably cost them to lose ungodly amounts of seats in both houses of Congress. Will destroy that party, and they'll be in the wilderness for the next 10 years. And Republicans will rack up huge majorities for the next decade. That's what it looks like to me. Let's all watch and see how that turns out. Now I'm watching a montage of clips of left-wing fake news media talking heads completely melting down, completely hysterical, because they now realize that Commie Bernie is going to be the nominee. And Chris Matthews, again, who's probably taking it worse than any of them, along with the Raging Cajun, Carville. Chris Matthews, after seeing Bernie's huge lead in Nevada, says, a Sanders victory in Nevada, this Sanders victory in Nevada, is like Nazi Germany overrunning France in 1940. It's too late to stop him. Yep, I agree. I don't really like that reference. I would actually use the reference of the 1939 when they invaded Poland is probably closer. But, okay, let's go along with the 1940 when they overran France. But it wasn't much of an overrunning of France. France just basically, in a negotiation, agreed to let Hitler have the country. And they didn't really put up much of a fight. Not like the Poles. Yeah, I mean, I'm watching this, and I'm seeing all these talking heads. They go from one to the next, and they're just freaking out because Bernie is going to be the nominee, and they just can't get over it. But the one question that none of these lunatic leftist talking heads ever ponder is, how did they get there? How did we get here? How did it end up with Commie Bernie, literally a communist, being the Democratic nominee? How in the world did we get here? Well, I'm going to answer that question for the far left-wing fake news media talking heads before they even get around to asking the question for themselves, because they'll eventually get there. They're not that bright, but eventually one of them, the light bulb will go on in their head and they'll go, man, how did this happen? How do we get to the point where we have a communist that's going to win the nomination of our party? Well, let me explain it to you. For the past 3 to 4 decades, these freaks, the Democrats, they're media hacks, left-wing media hacks in the fake news media, and especially their good friends in academia, these pointy-headed communist professors, have been pumping this garbage into the minds of young people, the dumbest among us, for decades and decades. And it's finally taken root, it has manifested itself, and it has metastasized, and now it has come into reality, and now that is what they've got. They created this. The very people who are going crazy about it and getting hysterical are the very people who created it. They created Bernie. He's their Frankenstein monster, and this is a lot like the Frankenstein story. The good doctor decides he wants to create this being and give it life, which he does. And then Dr. Frankenstein realizes once his monster jumps up off the table, he now has life. But then Dr. Frankenstein loses control over his monster, and so he goes around the countryside terrorizing the place, and they eventually have to put him down. So it's a Frankenstein story is what it is. And so the left-wing media hacks, far left-wing fools in the Democratic Party, and those pointy-headed communist professors in academia have been pumping this crap into the minds of young people for the past 3 to 4 decades. It's now finally come home to roost. They have now created this Frankenbernie. And so now they have Frankenbernie along with what do they call them? The Bolsheviks. So now you have Frankenbernie with a legion of Bolsheviks who've now taken over the party. And they're going to take the party right off the cliff. And they have themselves to blame. Because, like I say, for the past 2-3 decades, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years since Trump has been on the scene, they've been playing footsie with these people on the far, far left, and now they invited these people into their party. They basically rolled out the red carpet and said, "Come on in." They've invited all this upon themselves. They are the ones who are responsible for creating Frankenbernie. They own him. They own him. He's your problem now, demo commies. You deal with it while we enjoy the benefits of your incredibly party-ending, disastrous decision to mingle with these people and roll out the red carpet for them. You brought this all on yourself, and now you have got a Frankenbernie monster running loose in the countryside with the thousands of legions of supporters, the Berndanistas, or what do you want to call them, the Berncheviks, and now chickens have come home to roost, and we're going to be the benefactors of it all. But we got to stop this guy. He's dangerous. So are those supporters of his, a lot of them. Well, this is a story that, in a way, it surprises you, and in another way, it doesn't. Many of you have already heard about this, but we'll go ahead and go through it. And keep in mind, at this time, Saturday night, about 9:30 p.m., the details are still sketchy. We don't know. We're getting multiple conflicting reports. So I'll give you what the early reports are and then mention what the later reports are. But here's the basic story. DHS whistleblower Phil Haney has been found dead. Shot dead near his vehicle in California. It appears he has a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest that's being ruled a suicide. That was the first report that came out. Then, as the evening went on, they then changed that report, now saying that no gun was found and that they haven't ruled it a suicide. So, whether a gun was found next to him and it is a suicide, or whether there was no gun found, whatever, we don't know. There's conflicting reports. But we know that that Haney had gone on Sean Hannity and told him that in 2016 he was ordered to scrub the record of Muslims in the U.S. with terrorist ties. The Obama administration ordered Phil Haney to scrub the record of Muslims in the U.S. with Muslim ties, and of course a couple other things as well. And he, of course, then became a whistleblower based on that. Now, Haney first went missing on Wednesday. Friends of Haney have told a law enforcement official who knew and worked with Haney that they had talked with him. They had talked with Haney and earlier in that week, and that he was never happier, and that there's no way he would have taken his own life. It appears that his wife of many years had passed away several years ago from various medical issues, and he had recently met this woman, and they were about to be married here in about a month. And so he was very happy. Also, Haney had told some friends that he had lots of enemies since he blew the whistle on the Obama administration. He also talked about the fact that he had recently stumbled onto something that was big. Haney was also hired recently to work on a special assignment in Minnesota to help stop Keith Ellison from being elected as the Attorney General in Minnesota. So he had a gig going on too, and I think maybe something he discovered had something to do with that. He also told friends recently that he was doubling down on efforts to protect America from the progressive leftist socialist. Haney also told a friend of his, who's a radio talk show host named Jan Markell, that something could happen to him and it would be falsely called a suicide. Something could happen to him and it would be falsely called a suicide. And of course, like I said, we have multiple conflicting reports at this time. Some say there was a gun found, some say there was not. Initially ruled as suicide, now they're backing away from that. It's hard to say what happened, but clearly something going on here. And it doesn't surprise us, whistleblowers who blow the whistle on the deep state have a tendency to have a lot of problems. Whether it's Assange, whether it's Snowden, whether it's Glenn Greenfield, Greenwald, I think it is. Whether it's Seth Rich, whether it's I don't know. Now this order came from the Obama administration. I'm not sure what department of the Obama administration, but my guess is if it came from some department within the administration, probably the State Department, where the Reverend Clinton was in charge. And therefore, this could easily just fall into that long, long list of another person in the Clinton body count. That would be my guess if I were a betting man. Now, I'm just speculating on that. I don't know. That's just a speculation. Well, we have MSNBC, that nutcase Lawrence O'Donnell literally said yesterday on the air, Trump is a Russian operative and that Putin ordered the nomination of Rick Grinnell. I shit you not. Now, see, something like that. This is an organization that refers to itself as a news organization. Lawrence O'Donnell should be fired immediately. You look what they do. They deplatform Alex Jones. Of all the things, and I know Alex is over the top sometimes. Probably you can find some things he said that weren't true, but I don't think it's because he's purposely lying. I think Alex Jones believes everything he's saying. He don't got there and lie. And he's a little over the top sometimes and probably embellishes things a bit. But he's an entertainer in a lot of ways, and he's also a truth teller. Nobody's perfect. And they've just destroyed him and his ability to get his message out and destroyed his platform. Yet this son of a bitch can go on air on a major cable network and say that the President of the United States is a Russian operative and that Putin is the one who ordered the nomination of Rick Grinnell for the acting DNI. That should get him fired. And where is the FCC on all this? How is this able to happen? Shouldn't there be fines, suspensions, something? And I've railed on this and talked on this before. And at this point, I'm done with the FCC, man. I'm done with them. If there's any particular role, important thing that they have to do in America today, is to get a handle on the fake news. Yet you don't hear a peep out of them. No fines, no suspensions, nothing. So I'm now fully prepared to come out and endorse abolishing the FEC. Just get rid of them. They serve no function whatsoever. They're a big, bloated, expensive government bureaucratic agency that apparently is not even aware of what's going on underneath their very nose. Something that's actually very dangerous to the country, to the health of the country, and to free speech. So, yes, abolish the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. Be done with them, off with their head. They're incompetent, they're hapless, they're helpless, and they're hopeless. I'm done with them. Axe them. Roger Stone has filed a motion for Judge Amy Berman Jackson to recuse herself after she praised the integrity of the jurors. Absolutely. She praised the integrity of the jurors, knowing good and well at least one of them for sure lied about her prejudice. There is reports that maybe as many as a half a dozen others had strong prejudice against Trump and against Stone. She comes out in open court and says this. I've read the paragraph of her statement that they're referring to in this motion, this court motion. But she also berated Trump and the Attorney General and even accused Stone of covering up for the president, and even came out and said that the Russian collusion delusion was not a hoax. She's clearly a political operative. The Senate, as soon as they get back together again, Republicans in the Senate, and you could do it in the Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham should hold a hearing. They should subpoena Judge Amy Berman Jackson, bring her ass in there, question her, and I think they should vote to impeach and get rid of her. She's truly a perfect example of why you should never put a leftist on the bench. She's a disgrace. Well, it looks like more bad news for Katie Hill. Federal agents have arrested Arthur Dam, D-A-M, for hacking crimes that disrupted the 2018 Democratic primary. Oh, there was a lot of shenanigans going on there. You remember that? We had to wait literally a week after, in fact, it was even sometimes more than a week after the 2018 midterms to find out who won some of those seats in California. And in every case, every single case, there was like 8 or 9 of them where a Republican was leading on the night of the election, but a week or two later, every one of them seats ended up going to a Democrat. We lost like 8 or 9 seats within a week or two after the midterms in California. There was a lot of shenanigans going on. So now we get the story that federal agents have now arrested Arthur Dam for hacking crimes that disrupted the 2018 Democratic primary. Now, Dam's wife worked for Katie Hill. Both the Dams, husband and wife, donated to Hill's campaign. Dam also did graphic design for Hill's website and was also paid for website security consultation. And of course, we're talking about this left-wing congressperson from California who was forced to resign because she got caught with pictures of her naked in her office, doing funny business with one of her aides. And then, of course, doing bong hits and stuff, the whole 9 yards. And so she was forced out. But there's some other issues surrounding her campaign and some corruption that may have gone on. And so the question that's going to be asked of this individual, Mr. Dams, in fact, he's probably already been asked by these investigators, they're going to find out if Katie Hill knew that he was involved in this type of thing. Because let's face it, he was doing it to help her. So this could be trouble for Katie Hill. And this might shut her mouth, put her in the lockup for a couple of years, and maybe keep her out of her hair for a while. Well, it looks like about 2.5 years ago, William Binney did tell Mike Pompeo when he was head of the CIA that he had proof that there was no Russia hacking at the DNC. He told Pompeo he could produce the evidence. He actually brought the evidence. Pompeo was not interested in looking at it. Pompeo never relayed this information to President Trump. Yep, there you go. I'm not a big fan of Mike Pompeo. There are some things I think he's good on, but when I hear things like this, and also we know that he was opposed to firing Yovanovitch. In fact, he was first told that they need to get rid of Yovanovitch over a year ago. It wasn't until Trump finally put his foot down and ordered it that they fired her, and even then he probably wasn't happy about it. So that's really all I need to see on Pompeo. I've heard rumors that he may run for senator or something or whatever. He was in the House, I think, before. Yeah, let's just put him back into Congress. He's maybe good enough to have in the Congress, but I don't want him around the president. Let's go ahead and get rid of Pompeo, too, while we're draining the swamp. What do you think? Everybody agree? Good. So let it be written. Let it be done. Gavin Newsom. You're going to think this is another story that I'm making up or off the onion or something. I'm not making this up. You can go watch the video for yourself. He's dead nuts serious. Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, now saying that doctors should be able to write prescriptions for housing. Governor Newsom is now saying that doctors should be able to write prescriptions for housing. And his logic is that if someone goes to the doctor and they walk in, they're probably a homeless guy, the doctor looks at him and goes, "Boy, you look kind of rough. Showered lately? Let me have a look in the mirror. Oh boy, them ears are, everything's dirty. You're just dirty. I think you need to shower first. What seems to be the problems? Yeah, well, I don't think you have a very good diet either. So what? You don't have a house? Oh, okay. Oh, well, great. Because we just signed a new law here in California. I can go ahead and write you a prescription for one of those. So let's see. You need some mouthwash, some soap. You should be able to get this stuff over the counter. You don't need a prescription. And of course, you need one house. There you go. So I guess then the guy will then, homeless guy, I guess he just goes to a realtor and walks in with his prescription. Here, I got a prescription from my doctor for a house. That should work out pretty well. You know, they got a big problem there in California with housing prices have been pushed up so high that's the reason a lot of them people are on the street. They can't afford housing. And they're too stupid to go to a state where they can. Or too broke. Now, this would obviously bring down housing costs. The problem is, it would bring down housing costs like about 9,000% in a matter of hours as soon as the bill was signed. That's probably not the way you want to do it. That might trigger a little instability in the housing market in California, which is a big state, and that's why it's a little dangerous. It's not like we can separate California off from the rest of the country. Their economy is tied into everybody, and especially in housing and real estate. So this is almost a national security issue. You can't actually let this happen. Trump can't let this happen. I mean, go arrest him or what? I don't know. Take him to federal court before they even try. But this is insanity. It's really hard to believe. Now, keep in mind, Mini Mike, the loon, Bloomberg, actually was giving a speech a couple of days ago, and he said that California should be the model for the rest of the country. There you go. That's all you need to know about Mini Mike, the loon, Bloomberg. Loonberg. Oh, my goodness. Well, it looks like we have Susan Rice freaking out over Mike Grinnell. And she's at this little forum, a room full of people, and she's asked about Rick Grinnell, and she says, quote, he's one of the worst, no, she says he's one of the most nasty, dishonest people I've ever encountered. She says Grinnell was put in the job to use intelligence tools for political purposes. The chutzpah from these people. She also says Grinnell is a hack and a shill, and that's all he's ever been. Well, here's the difference between you and him, you criminal. He's now the head of the DNI, and he's just been given a great big gift named Kash Patel, who knows who all the deep state criminals are. He's going to point them out, and now Grinnell has the power to fire them. And in fact, he's already gotten started. His very first day on the job, he fired the number 2 man at DNI. So now McGuire, who was the acting, was replaced by Grinnell. And Grinnell comes in and fires the number 2. And Kash Patel is putting together a list right now of all the rest of them who are about to get booted out on their ass. All friends of Mr. Potato Head and Crapper. James Crapper. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, she's terrified, like all these other members of the deep state, because they know that Trump's putting people in place to drain the swamp and expose the criminals and their crimes. Now, Susan Rice also has a couple other big problems. She was a key player in the Spygate scandal, and she is the first person we've identified within Obama's cabinet that was an active participant in the coup. She's the one who would have been directly in charge or would have been responsible for allowing or requesting or ordering all those unmaskings. And I believe that she, Samantha Power, and Victoria F. the EU Newland are the 3 people that are really going to be targeted surrounding those unmaskings. And when you're inside the president's cabinet, what that tells you is that if you're in the president's cabinet, the president knows everything you know if you're in his cabinet. Everything Susan Rice was doing, Barack Obama knew about it. She wasn't doing things without him knowing about it. Cabinet level officials directly communicated to the president about everything they're doing. And so Susan Rice is the direct link to Obama and the coup plot. And she's going to find herself between a rock and a hard place at some point here in the near future. Of course, Devin Nunes is suing the Washington Post, just another on the list of people he's suing for their latest lies. And finally, to wrap it all up here, we'll finish off with a great Trump tweet. So, just a little while ago, Trump tweeted out, once the numbers came in that show pretty clearly that Commie Bernie is going to win the Nevada caucus in a fairly large way. Trump tweets out, quote, looks like Crazy Bernie is doing well in Nevada. Biden and the rest look weak, and no way Mini Mike can restart his campaign after the worst debate performance in history of presidential debates. Congratulations, Bernie, and don't let them take it away from you. That's right. And like I say, if they could have kept Bernie in delegate count to about 30-35% of the delegates, they probably could have screwed him at the convention, because even though he'd still have more than anybody else, he'd still be far from a majority. But if he rolls in, and it looks like that's going to be the case right now, because he's clearly the delegate leader by far, and he's probably going to do pretty well on Super Tuesday, and then 2 weeks after that, he's going to come out of the month of March with probably 300 to 500 delegate lead. If he rolls into the convention and he has 400 or 500 more delegates than the second place person, it'll be nearly impossible to steal it from him. That would be too obvious. And that's going to put the Democratic Party in a world of hurt. It's all to our benefit. Don't forget your pick for Dumbass of the Week. See you tomorrow for more TowerGate. Bye.